everyone, this is Maki. Today, I'll be explaining one of the forms of the Impulse Gundam, known as the Force Impulse Gundam. While the Impulse Gundam itself is a formidable mobile suit, when combined with an equipment swapping system called the Silhouette System, it shines even brighter as a potent force on the battlefield. By endowing a single mobile suit with multiple functions, it's an attempt to adhere to the international limit on the number of mobile suits as stipulated in the Junius Treaty. Its capabilities approach those of the Freedom Gundam, a hero from the previous war. Moreover, the Impulse Gundam, when combined with its fusion system called the Impulse System, can execute astonishing battle tactics. So, let's dive into the mysteries of the Force Impulse Gundam. The Impulse Gundam was manufactured as part of a plan to produce a potent force under the restrictions of the Junius Treaty by giving a single mobile suit the combat capability to adapt to multiple situations. The Silhouette System was precisely the equipment suitable for achieving this aim. This system was inspired by the equipment swapping mechanism of the Strike Gundam, which performed legendary feats in the previous war. To explain more precisely, it's based on Zaft's Wizard system, which took inspiration from the Striker Pack system of the Strike Gundam. The Silhouette system is a redesign of the Wizard system, a standard within the Zaft military, specifically for the Impulse Gundam. The most significant difference between the Wizard system and the Silhouette system is the latter's use of the Silhouette Flyer, an unmanned aircraft that transports equipment to the battlefield for on-the-spot armament changes. It allows for operational methods similar to the cooperation between the Strike Gundam and Skygrasser in the previous war. It is unknown whether the Silhouette Flyer was developed based on Skygrasser technology. However, the aerial exchange by Skygrasser was carried out during the battle with Zamza-Zah's unit, which operated the GATX series Storm from the Earth Alliance forces. Therefore, it's highly likely that video footage of the Skygrasser performing these equipment changes remains within Zaft's archives. A significant difference from the Striker Pack system is the absence of an onboard battery. Since the Striker Packs come equipped with batteries, they can replenish the energy of the Strike Gundam even if its primary energy is depleted. In contrast, the Silhouette system doesn't include a battery, meaning the Impulse Gundam doesn't receive an energy boost upon swapping equipment. Specific details on this are scant, but during its battle against the Freedom Gundam, no energy depletion issues were noted, given that energy was not exhausted even in intense combat that pushed the Impulse Gundam to its limits. It might be that Zaft's Tech Development Division deemed it unnecessary to include a battery in the Silhouette system. Benefits such as weight reduction and simplification of the design to improve production efficiency can be inferred if the design had been more complex, thereby limiting production numbers. Audacious tactics like those used against the Freedom Gundam might have been unfeasible. When the Impulse Gundam equips the Force Silhouette, it's referred to as the Force Impulse. This equipment enables high mobility combat regardless of gravitational conditions. Documents even suggest that its aerial combat capabilities rival those of the Freedom Gundam, considered the strongest in the previous war. The variable phase shift armor of the Impulse Gundam equipped with the Force Silhouette remains predominantly blue, consistent with its unequipped state. Its 6 wings also function as heat radiators, efficiently dispersing the intense heat produced by the multiple high-powered thrusters. Because the force silhouette primarily aims to enhance mobility, the only additional armament is a beam saber. However, this beam saber surpasses even those of the Freedom and Justice, granting the Impulse Gundam formidable attack power, especially when compared to many mass-produced mobile suits. For the battleship maneuver, which lacked significant aerial forces, the flight-capable Impulse Gundam was invaluable, especially as it downed multiple Murasame units that transformed into mobile armor mode for high-speed movement, and most notably its showdown with the Freedom Gundam can be hailed as one of the best battles in the Gundam Seed series. While being its standard form, the Force Impulse's performance left an indelible mark in the eyes of the audience. Let's take a look at the armaments of the Force Impulse Gundam. All the weapons that were described in the main Impulse Gundam explanation are standard equipment and therefore usable. The chest-mounted Vulcan cannons and the beam rifle are both available for use. The knife equipped on the waist is also stored and ready for use. While there are no scenes in the TV anime where the Force Impulse uses the knife, we can see it being utilized in some games and other media. This is likely because Shin, a regular soldier, is piloting it, and he has the support of the maneuver and the silhouette system. Compared to the beam saber, the knife has a shorter reach, making it a weapon of last resort. Had the situation been like Kira from Seed, where one must fight with limited resources without ample support, we might have seen the Force Impulse using the knife. Firstly, we have the MAM-94, one Bakra beam saber. It is named after the weapon of the Thunder God from Indian mythology. This weapon is an upgrade from the lacquered beam sabers used by the Freedom and Justice, which were active in the previous war. Its destructive power has also been enhanced, making it a truly lethal weapon. Although not depicted in the TV anime, it is possible according to the setting to use it as the ambidextrous halberd by connecting two beam sabers. There are multiple opinions regarding this beam saber. Within the Junius Treaty, an agreement between the Earth Alliance and the Zah forces, there is a clause that prohibits the military use of Mirage colloid particles. The beam saber, introduced in the previous series Seed, uses Mirage colloid particles to fix the beam energy in the shape of a braid. However, under the Junius Treaty, this technology cannot be used. So, how did Zah realize this beam saber? In the official model kit, High-Grade Cosmic Error, it's explained as follows. The Bakra beam saber uses applied Mirage colloid particle technology, which is a different technology from the previous Mirage colloid particle technology. Hence, it does not violate the Junius Treaty. What about the real grade model kit? It's also an official model. After the technology of Mirage colloid particles was banned, the Zah forces developed a new technology. The Bakra beam saber is a beam saber created with this new technology, which complies with the Junius Treaty. Mirage colloid particles also have the characteristic of reacting beams. This technology is used in the systems of the Forbidden Gundam and the Giant Beam Cannon Requiem. This characteristic is also utilized in depictions, where the Freedom Gundam deflects beams with its beam saber. If the Impulse Gundam's beam saber didn't use Mirage colloid particle technology, it might not have been able to deflect beams. Even if it's an applied technology, if the Mirage colloid particles are used, it probably cannot circumvent the Junius Treaty. Of course, in the world of sea, there are actions that blatantly ignore the treaty, so how much these conditions are considered might be up for debate. The Force Impulse also used the Sword Silhouette's weapons in its battle against the Freedom Gundam. In the spin-off Destiny, Astray Courtney Hiriaya's remarks about the Silhouette system's operation. In the future, it may be possible for a single unit to respond to any situation in conjunction with a Silhouette flyer, controlled by Dragoons and others. To which Kite Madigan, an experienced pilot, denies, saying, "That's an unrealistic idea." However, Shin executed a tactic very close to this concept in his battle against the Freedom Gundam. The strategy of using the Sword Silhouette's weapons was an application of the Silhouette system as a mobile weapons depot. This led him to ultimately defeat the Freedom Gundam. Another notable point is Shin's use of the shield as a weapon. As explained in a previous program, the Impulse Gundam's shield, unlike the laminate armor that converts energy into heat, defends by deflecting beams. By leveraging this mechanism, Shin redirected the bullets from the Impulse Gundam's beam rifle to damage the Freedom Gundam. It's a tactic similar to the refractor income used by the XS Gundam from previous Gundam series. Additionally, Shin also employed a tactic leveraging the Impulse Gundam's separation and combination mechanism. He evaded the Freedom Gundam's beam saber attack through separation, immediately counterattacked from behind, and destroyed one of the Freedom Gundam's wings. While the Excalibur strike that delivered the finishing blow is often highlighted, this attack, which reduced the propulsion and worsened the balance by destroying the wing, can undoubtedly be called the deciding factor in the Impulse Gundam's victory. A similar tactic is employed by the Gundam Prototype 1 from Gundam 0083. However, a more ancestral model would be the Getter Robo. Its structure, where three combat aircraft combine to form a robot, resembles the Impulse Gundam. Getter Robo was a hit because of its transformation and combination, leading to toy manufacturers requesting Yoshiyuki Tomino, director of the original Gundam, to incorporate the same mechanism into Gundam. Thus, the original Gundam also had a combination mechanism. Getter Robo exhibits powerful combat abilities when the hearts of its three pilots unite. Similarly, the Force Impulse achieved superior combat capabilities, surpassing the Freedom Gundam when the hearts of Shinrei and Marin came together as one. When it comes to the highlights of Force Impulse Gundam, which scene comes to mind? Surely, it's the battle with Freedom Gundam, of course. We'll be covering that in today's program. But why don't we take a brief look at some of its other feats as well? What I'd like to focus on is the battle against the Earth Alliance's mobile armor, Zamza-Zah. It was a confrontation between the cutting-edge weaponry of the era following the tremendous success of their mobile suits in. Zaft continued to develop a series of powerful machines. There were reasons beyond just its success for this, given the limited number of personnel in the Zaft compared to the Earth Alliance. There was a necessity to keep the number of people operating these machines to a minimum. On the other hand, the Earth Alliance has an immense amount of personnel and resources. After witnessing the threat of Zaft's mobile suits in the previous war, they rushed to produce their own. However, after the war ended, a faction that prioritized mobile armor over mobile suits emerged, leading to the creation of the Zamza-Zah. There's a reason for this shift. It was extremely difficult for a single natural to pilot the mobile suit due to their reflexes. but by distributing the roles among multiple people, the burden was significantly reduced. In the spin-off Stargazer, there's a scene where Zin, piloted by a coordinator child, battles against regular military personnel. Zin is a machine that, even for a coordinator, requires intense training to operate. The battle revealed that, when piloted by multiple personnel, even a child could exhibit terrifying combat capabilities. Zamza-Zah is a powerful new weapon that could only be realized because of the abundant personnel and resources of the Earth Alliance. How did this battle end? As viewers saw in the TV anime, it concluded with the victory of the Impulse Gundam, but the combat capability of the Zamza-Zah was nothing short of astounding. There were moments where it had the upper hand against the Force Impulse, which was on par with the aerial combat capability of Freedom Gundam. Of course, when comparing the battle between Freedom Gundam and Impulse Gundam, it's important to note that Shin was relatively inexperienced at the time. Despite seeing that the maneuver Stanhauser was being defended by Zamza-Zah, there were scenes where he was firing his beam rifle directly and wasting energy with broad movements during this battle. The Force Impulse runs out of energy. Considering that he didn't run out of energy during the battle with Freedom Gundam, it's clear he made many wasteful moves. However, this energy depletion saved Shin's life just when he was caught by Zamza-Zah's call and about to be smashed into the sea. The energy for the phase shift armor ran out. As a result, by having its legs severed, the Force Impulse was able to return to the air before crashing into the water. In this desperate situation, Shin activates his seed ability. He requests Marin to provide energy through the deuterium beam and to launch the red fire and sword silhouette. At this point, Shin was already planning his assault on the enemy fleet after taking down Zamza-Zah. When replenishing energy, the Force Impulse remains stationary, but Zamza-Zah doesn't approach. Likely, Shin had learned from the battle so far, keeping a distance and angle from Zamza-Zah to avoid being hit while recharging. It's a moment that showcases Shin's rapid growth. Then he blocks Zamza-Zah's beam with his shield. Here again, the depiction shows the shield deflecting the beam. It doesn't convert the beam into thermal energy like the laminate armor but disperses it, hiding the Force Impulse from the enemy. Analyzing the lens flare phenomenon visible on the screen, the Force Impulse is seen launching its attack on the Zamza-Zah with the sun at its back. After destroying the Zamza-Zah, Shin swaps out the red fire, changes his armament to sword impulse, and heads towards the enemy fleet. In this battle, Shin learned to utilize impulse's advantages like immediate parts replacement and weapon swapping, as well as the special properties of the shield. These experiences would later play a crucial role in his battle against Freedom Gundam. And now we turn to the battle against Freedom Gundam. It's a fight that will be etched into the history of the Gundam Seed series. Before the battle, Weizo, Burrow, and Shin analyzed the combat techniques of the Freedom Gundam. They identify advantages for Impulse Gundam against Freedom Gundam, which employs strategies like destroying Camera's weapons limbs and propulsion systems. Kira always fights trying to avoid taking the life of his opponent. However, such a strategy is particularly disadvantageous against the Impulse Gundam, which can swiftly restore its state. The technique of swapping parts to repair damage is a combat method designed by the Soft Army with the Regenerate Gundam. The Impulse Gundam, a descendant of the Regenerate Gundam, proved that its design philosophy was effective against formidable foes. Of course, the characteristics of the mecha alone aren't the only factors leading to victory. Shin's skills are also a crucial element. During his battle with Freedom Gundam, Shin has successfully dodged the enemy's beams by a hair's breadth numerous times. This is due to Kiro's tactic of precisely targeting the ends of the mecha and Shin's abilities. Shin has managed to evade beams at such a close range that the light reflects off the Impulse Gundam's armor. In the spin-off work Destiny, a stray-eyed Madigan mentions that the skilled pilot always observes the muzzle of the enemy, enabling them to dodge near light-speed beams. Shin exhibits this skill in his battle. Shin launches the chest flyer and falls silhouette towards Freedom Gundam, employing the same strategy used by Yuso Evin of Victory Gundam. By applying the propulsion force of the full silhouette, which grants the Impulse Gundam aerial mobility comparable to Freedom Gundam, solely to the chest flyer, Freedom Gundam is left with no option other than defense. Furthermore, with the Vulcan cannon of the Cold Splendor, the full silhouette is detonated, delivering a shock to the pilot. The objective of this attack wasn't necessarily to destroy Freedom. Though the shock does cause significant damage, it won't be the decisive blow against the phase shift armored Freedom Gundam. Prior to this scene, the Impulse Gundam, having its head and left arm destroyed, needed to swap the chest flyer. Therefore, a window of opportunity against Freedom Gundam was essential. Later, using the reflection from his shield, Shin launches a beam attack that damages the shoulder armor of Freedom Gundam. For the Freedom Gundam, which cannot swap parts in the battlefield, this is minor yet sure damage. Extensive armor damage implies that the subsequent attack on the same spot could potentially lead to the loss of an arm. The following scene is a subject of debate. Kira, determining that it was impossible to fight without taking lives, aimed for the cockpit and executed a beam saber attack against the Impulse Gundam. If Impulse Gundam hadn't utilized its separation technique for evasion, Shin would have been incinerated by the beam saber. What's your take on this? One viewpoint suggests that Kiro, realizing Impulse would ascend to dodge, unleashed the attack intending to destroy the lower half. Given Kiro's abilities, predicting such a move is plausible. Another perspective is, while Kiro strives to avoid taking lives, he is prepared to do so if absolutely necessary. Unable to incapacitate the Impulse, he targeted the cockpit. Personally, I lean towards this interpretation. Throughout the battle with Impulse Gundam, the Archangel is under a relentless assault from the Soft Army. To protect the lives of his comrades aboard the Archangel, Kira might have resolved to take a life. Kira should have understood that the recently damaged Impulse Gundam was restored to an undamaged state through parts replacement. Simply damaging the legs wouldn't significantly change the tide of battle. This, of course, remains my personal interpretation. Surprisingly, Shin uses the mobile suit separation mechanism to evade Freedom Gundam's attack. The Impulse Gundam, having dodged the Freedom Gundam's saber through evasive maneuvers, proceeds to destroy the Freedom's wings. At this moment, Kira chooses to retreat. Perhaps he assessed that it would be perilous to battle with the Freedom Gundam, which had lost its balance against an adversary of such similar powers. Kira's ability to evade attacks from behind is impressive. However, he still ends up defending against further shots from Shin with his shield. he must have deemed evasion too challenging. Then she names and destroys the beam rifle. If the Freedom Gundam had been undamaged, it might not have placed itself in a position to be targeted by the beam rifle. The fact that the mobile suit's balance was compromised is likely a major reason. Upon confirming the explosion of the beam rifle, Shin calls for the ejection of the sword silhouette. He first launches an attack with the beam boomerang. The sword silhouette's beam boomerang is not only a blade of energy but is also designed to serve as an effective physical weapon. It can be transformed by connecting two bonesangs to harness physical impact. But there is no time to make such a connection when facing the Freedom Gundam. The purpose of this attack is to target Freedom Gundam's shield, intending to upset its balance. Interestingly, the tactic of deflecting the shield to disrupt balance is a strategy that Hero employs when battling a friend. Whether or not Shin recalled this duel at that moment is uncertain, but given Shin's meticulous study of the Freedom Gundam's combat techniques, he would surely have been aware of this. Then, with the Freedom Gundam off balance, Shin executes the final blow. It's a charge using Excalibur. The force impulse's top speed ensures the Freedom Gundam has no chance to escape. Also, by angling the mobile suit diagonally, he takes a posture that protects the cockpit from incoming attacks. I believe that Shin must have realized during his evasive maneuvers that the Freedom Gundam might aim for the cockpit. Given the reach of the beam, saber, and Excalibur, the Impulse Gundam has the advantage. Even if an enemy strike hits him directly, intercepting it with the head might still enable a finishing blow with Excalibur. Observing this scene closely, one can see a beam emanating from the tip of the Excalibur. Regarding this scene, the mechanical animation director Mr. Satoshi Shigeto commented the portrayal was designed to visually convince the viewers that the Excalibur can penetrate the Freedom Gundam's armor. Within Mr. Shigeto's remarks, there is also mention that the beam enveloping Excalibur is due to Shin's seed ability. Additionally, in the model kit, an expanded beam braid setting was added for Excalibur, similar to this scene. Analyzing these opinions collectively, one can infer that maxing out the beam braid of Excalibur may harm the weapon itself. Previous Gundam series have scenes where increasing the beam saber's output heightens its power at the expense of the handle's durability. If combat with an enlarged beam braid was sustainable, it would be a tactic employed more frequently. Likely, the Excalibur incurs significant damage. Using his heightened state senses to perceive the surroundings, she might have maximized the beam's output, intending to strike Freedom before Excalibur broke. At the start of the assault, the blade of Excalibur appears just as it does during normal use. Analyzing in this manner aligns all opinions. At last, the Excalibur's attack parries the Freedom Gundam. Thus Shin successfully vanquishes the Freedom Gundam, avenging Stellar. In the end, the Impulse Gundam's head is destroyed. This mode of attack, where even with a shattered head, it charges and parries the enemy's torso, mirrors what Kira did to Raul Crate. Whether by chance or not, to me it seemed symbolic of Shin's prowess reaching Kira's level. Emerging from the explosion is the battered Impulse Gundam, reminiscent of the Freedom Gundam in the final episode of Gundam Seed. In the TV anime broadcast, not the remaster, one of the ending themes is titled You Look Like Me. Though the music that played during the showdown with the Freedom Gundam was different, upon seeing the Impulse Gundam in that state, the title of this song came to my mind. That concludes our overview of the 4th Impulse Gundam. It's captivating how it being a battery-powered mobile suit boasts performance that rivals the Freedom Gundam, isn't it? Probably the fact that Zah, who manufactured Freedom and Justice, took their time to meticulously craft this next-generation mobile suit plays a significant role. The technological prowess they showcased by rapidly developing the Freedom Gundam after confiscating the GATX series, combined with ample time, was indeed formidable. There are silhouettes for the Impulse Gundam besides the main 3 equipment showcased in the TV anime. I'm considering preparing videos discussing these additional features. Please look forward to it. Now, we'll have you participate in the Angel Down operation. The mobile suit you'll be provided with is the 4th Impulse Gundam. Please hit the subscribe button to equip the 4th silhouette. By pressing the like button, you can request additional flyers or the launch of silhouettes. With the bell button, you can maximize the output of Excalibur. I believe you can surely achieve victory. Wishing you the best of luck.